If you aren't telling stories, you are boring. Hi, I'm Jamie Gorman, the host of Be Better at Business TV. And I'm here this morning with Sally Strackbein, and she is the CSF, that's the Chief Story Facilitator for Defining Story. Good morning, Sally.
Good morning, Jamie.
And this morning we're going to discuss how you can tell the story of your business. So, Sally, everybody loves a good story, right?
Pretty much.
So what do you mean? What is a business story, and how can people use that as an effective marketing tool?
You know what the real secret is to a business story?
No.
It's actually a personal story.
Okay, so good.
Now tell me,
Mm-hmm.
do you want to do business with a company, or do you want to do business with a human being that cares about you?
Well, I think everybody would prefer to do it with a human, that you buy from a person, right?
That's
you like to
right.
buy from a person, you prefer that.
That's right, and that's what the business story is all about.
Okay.
It's about why you should connect with that person.
Okay, great. So essentially the business story is a personal story that relates to the business, but it really is something that helps you connect on a personal basis and start building relationships.
Exactly, because people, you know this, you probably teach it, people do business with people that they know,
Right.
like, and trust.
Okay. So can you give us an example of maybe somebody who's done this?
Good question. I wasn't expecting that
I'm
one.
sorry.
Let me tell you about one of my favorites.
Okay.
Her name's Catherine Talmadge, and you may have seen her on the internet. She's a really high-end nutritionist.
Okay.
And she's one of these. She's Swedish, and she's teeny, like she's about this big around.
Right.
And you look at her, and then you look at me, and I say, what do you know about being me?
That's right. Okay.
And she helps people be healthy and maintain their weight.
Right.
Then she told this story. When she was a little kid, her mother would always be worried about her own weight, the mother's
Okay.
weight, to the extent that she would take peas, green peas, and weigh them on a kitchen scale, and they would be rolling off of the scale onto the table and onto the floor. And Catherine would watch her mother struggling with this all the time.
Wow.
And yet the mother was beautiful. She had lots of friends. She had a great personality, and she really didn't need to be worrying about that. Mm-hmm. And Catherine's goal in life is not to see anybody suffer like that.
Right. Okay.
And you hear that, it's like, wow, she has a heart for helping people. And it's
Right.
not just about, I'm going to tell you to eat less food.
Right. And that's great because it gives, it's not only just buying from a person, but it's somebody who understands what you're going through, understands your need. That also helps you.
Exactly.
It gives them credibility, right?
Exactly, yes.
Great.
It's credibility and likability.
Yeah.
Because credibility, likability equals bankability.
Absolutely. Well, I just want to say that Be Better Business TV is a live show, and so you can go to our website at BeBetterBusiness.com/TV. You can chat in questions, and so hopefully we'll get some of those questions. But before we go to that, I have a friend who says that every sale is emotion, right? That we go in and we like to think we buy on logic and all that type of thing, but really it's emotional in the end. We make that decision. How does storytelling help with that emotion?
Storytelling is actually, there's brain science behind storytelling.
Okay.
Because from the beginning of time, from the caveman days, before the written word, before recordings, people communicated important information through stories.
Okay.
And they had to be memorable. For instance, let's take Catherine's story. Could you see Catherine when I described her?
Yeah.
As a teeny little Swedish person, blonde,
Right.
of course. And you could see the green peas rolling off onto the table.
Okay.
Every piece of information, the green of the peas, the frustration, all of those visual, sensory, emotional pieces are stored in your brain in the same place that they would have been stored had you actually experienced it yourself.
Right.
Which makes it a much more richer memory and much more easily to retrieve, as opposed to a little logical fact.
Okay.
So the emotional piece comes from putting in the frustration, putting in the pain, putting in the
Right.
joy, those emotions. And people make those decisions based on the emotion, and then you follow up with the facts so they can justify their decision.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, because as you were saying that, I wasn't thinking, oh yeah, I like how she's using the P's and using it. But just as you recall it now, I think, wow, that was an impact part of the story. Is just that kind of description for it. Great, great. Well, Alyssa, do we have any questions from the audience?
I have an accountant firm. Does this work for B2B professional service businesses?
Well, that's a good one. You know, I do a lot with social media, and when it's business to business, it's easy to, like you talk about weight loss, things like that are more personal type services. You know, maybe a little bit easier to tell that story. What about for a business to business, an accountant, or I do business consulting? You know, how do you kind of come up with some of those?
Well, even in business, you're not really doing business with the company. You're doing business with the representative of the company.
Okay.
Back when I was in my high-tech days, I purchased computers and software, fairly substantial.
Okay.
Fairly
So
substantial.
you have a technical side.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And we used accounting services. We had accountants come in.
Right.
You really want somebody that you can connect with, somebody that you like to spend time with, because when you're dealing with a high ticket purchase, you don't want to be in the room with that person and be irritated the whole time.
Right, right.
You want to have a feeling like that person connects with you, that person understands you. That emotional connection opens up the learning. It opens up the connection that people communicate with.
Okay, so I think what you're saying there is that, you know, if I have an accounting firm with 3, 4, 5, you know, CPAs, it's not a matter that everybody knows the story behind the business. It's a matter that everybody knows their story and then can relate that back to the business and the profession that they're in.
Yes, and with a big firm like that, you need the firm story and you need the individual story as well.
Okay, because then that helps from a sales
Yeah.
perspective. That's great. So that's good advice from that aspect of it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Sally does this for a living. She's a consultant that helps people with their presentation skills, with their storytelling. And you can find her at definingstory.com. And we've talked a lot about storytelling. But is there anything you want to share about defining story and maybe tell a little bit of that story? I'm putting you on the spot.
Oh, you're going to put me on the spot. Okay. Well, I always loved stories. I always read books and watched movies, and I always knew it was important, but I didn't know why until I had a neuroscientist in one of my storytelling workshops.
Okay.
And after the workshop, he really liked it, and I knew he knew a lot about the brain, and I asked him to do a research paper for me on storytelling in the brain. And what came out of that is, I alluded to it a little earlier, is that when you tell somebody stories, it really is stored differently in the brain.
Right.
And so my goal is to help people go out in the world and be authentic, help them be understood, and help them attract what's right for them. And to do that, you have to be memorable.
Okay.
So the stories help people be memorable. They help people make the emotional connection. And so I help people do that. I help people go out and just be themselves and get the business that they want.
But kind of thinking through that aspect of, if you kind of have that in the back of your mind when those situations come up, you have those prepared and you've been able to do that.
Yes, they really need to be prepared because most people can't just off the top of their head tell a well-formed story.
Right, right.
I know I can't. I need to
it's
work on
tough.
them a bit.
That's great. I actually heard one yesterday. I was at a networking group and the lady got up and she said, I was at a holiday party, I think it was a Super Bowl party, and she was talking to somebody and they were talking about some tax thing, and she kind of said, no, you're doing it wrong. You need to do such and such.
Oh.
So she got that person as a lead, and then somebody else came up to her, and she said, okay, well, what's your tax problem? She said, my problem is that I'm using that other lady for advice.
Oh, no!
And she ended up by saying that, so she got 2 leads over the 7-layer dip,
Whoa.
which was a pretty good story and very memorable.
I guess.
Right?
Wow.
So, great. Well, thank you very much for being on Be Better
You're
Business TV.
welcome.
I'm glad that you came, and I think we can all benefit from improving our stories a little bit. And if we need help, we can certainly contact Sally. Go to definingstory.com. Read her blog. Very good. Once again, I'm Jamie Gorman, the host of Be Better at Business TV. I'm also the CEO of Sigma Business Management, and we help with business planning, marketing planning, really anything that you need to be better at business. Hope that you can use this show to help yourself be better at business today.